président de Royal Dutch Shell.
Distinguished guests, thank you very much for having me here today and talking about water from an energy perspective. And you may wonder why an energy company is talking about water. We are actually handling more water than most of the water companies do in the world. So for us, this is a key subject. It is also quite heartening to me to see that we are actually starting to link these resource shortages which we are having together. So I'm talking here about water, energy, and also food resources. After all, demand of all three will rise in concert thanks to a surging global population and also the growth in developing economies. And they're actually going through the most energy-intensive phase in their life at the moment. And there are powerful linkages between the three resources. For my own industry, water is an especially important issue. Energy providers are among the largest industrial consumers of fresh water, even if our consumption pales in comparison to the agriculture sector. But we need it for drilling, we need it for flooding the wells, refining crudes, biofuels, and others. But we also need it actually for power generation and for transportation. At the same time, there is obviously energy needed for the supply, the purification, the distribution, and the treatment of water and wastewater. In some Gulf countries, the energy needed to desalinate water accounts for around 2/3 of domestic oil usage. Now, it's very well to recognize all of these connections, but the toughest challenge actually still remains: what to do about it. For years, policymakers have spoken of the need for a more integrated approach to tackling the world's environmental challenges, but delivering concrete progress has proved notoriously difficult, and the overwhelming tendency is still to consider each issue in isolation. So one of the big obstacles we had over the last few years was actually the lack of hard data, especially about freshwater usage. That's hardly surprising when you consider there is not even a standard method for accounting water use in industrial settings. As a consequence, little work has been done to examine the water intensity of different energy pathways or of the energy system as a whole. And we have lacked a proper review or overview of where the energy system is putting the world's water resources under the most strain. At Shell, over the past year, we have been working with the World Business Council for Sustainable Development and the University of Utrecht to put this right. In simple terms, we have developed a methodology for measuring water use in the industrial sector as a whole. And we have applied it to the energy industry. Now, it sounds all too easy maybe to you, but it means that we now can actually estimate with greater accuracy the amount of water needed to generate energy from different sources, including oil, gas, coal, nuclear, and biofuels, and using different technologies and in different locations. We have published all of this and our findings in a peer-review article in a scientific journal, and I have it here and it's available for all of you. We have also given it to the International Energy Agency so that they actually can build it into their wider business models. Now, all of this should bring several benefits, not least for policymakers deciding how to meet rising demand for heating, transport, and electricity. They will have a clearer sense of how different energy pathways might affect their precious water resources. But this is just the beginning. At Shell, we are now taking our work a stage forward. Some of you will know that for decades we have produced energy scenarios for 50 years normally, to map how the global energy system might evolve, and that we factor CO2 emissions into our work. Now that all enables us actually to see how much CO2 the world would emit in different energy scenarios, and policymakers to see what needs to be done to meet emission targets. Now thanks to the water project we have just done, we will now soon be able to do the same for water. We are factoring our new data on water use into our scenario models. That will give us a better understanding of the demands of the energy system and what actually the energy system which demand it will place on global water resources in the decades ahead. As such, it will be another critical step towards a more integrated approach to energy and environmental policy making. So what are the major themes emerging out of this work which we now have started? The first sounds like an obvious one, that the freshwater consumption in the whole energy system will grow sharply. This is partly because global energy demand will double in the first half of this century. It's also because the world will draw more of its energy from water-intensive sources and technologies, for example, biofuels. Nevertheless, it is the power sector that will continue to account for the majority of energy-related freshwater use. It's important to realize that different technologies have a very different impact on water use in the power sector. In particular, the type of cooling system used in a power plant is a major determinant of the total quantity of water needed to generate the electricity. The energy source also matters. For example, it can be much more water intensive to generate electricity from coal and nuclear than gas, for example. So growing the share of gas-fired power could help to reduce the overall fresh water intensity of electricity generation. And replacing coal-fired power with gas can also help to cut CO2 emissions, as we know. A second emerging theme is the importance of geographical location. Again, that might sound obvious, but you only have to look at biofuels to see why this really matters. Biofuels may offer on the one side the fastest route to CO2 emissions reductions in the road transport sector. On the other side, if you grow biofuel feedstocks in water-stressed areas, could mean that the overall social and environmental impact is far from positive. That's why it is preferable to source feedstock in countries like Brazil, where the agriculture system are fed mainly by rainwater rather than irrigation. A third observation is that the world must address some unexpected dilemmas, such as the tension between reducing CO2 emissions on the one side and conserving water supplies on the other side. I just talked about biofuels, which is one of the examples. I can also talk about nuclear power, and I leave the technology discussion on the one side, but nuclear power can really deliver substantial CO2 reduction benefits while taking a heavy toll on fresh water resources in some of the regions. So how do we actually solve this puzzle? Innovation and technology will clearly be critical. The energy industry already employs some highly effective water technologies, and we are getting better at recovering and recycling water, including wastewater from communities. Let me just use one example here, which is an example from tight gas, shale gas, which is water intensive in Canada. There we are building a water recycling plant for the nearby city of Dawson Creek. The plant will treat sewage water so that it can be reused in our operations instead of fresh water, and also can be used for other industrial and municipal purposes, like water for sports fields, etc. A second example, just recently we brought our giant gas-to-liquids project in Qatar in the desert up and running. This converts natural gas into high-value liquid fuels and chemicals feedstocks. Now, the chemical reaction, ladies and gentlemen, that turns the gas into liquids also produces a large amount of water and heat. So at this project, we built a system that enables us to harness these byproducts to drive the plant's equipment with steam. Thus, we are avoiding completely drawing water in Qatar as a country, and the water is rather short there. We also on biofuels, we are making progress. We are investing in sugarcane ethanol in Brazil through our joint venture in Raizan. And we are now, on the agriculture side, we virtually have no irrigation to grow the sugarcane because of high seasonal rainfall. And Raizan uses a system that recycles 90% of the water used in the industrial process. We have a similar process now also in place in oil sands, which has reduced water usage very considerably. But it will take more than technological innovations to ease the strain on the world's water and energy resources. It also needs new forms of collaboration within the public and the private spheres, and this is absolutely needed and fast. We need partnerships that marry the commercial expertise of the private enterprises on the one side with the public sector's understanding of regulatory economics. We need partnerships that remain impartial and that don't fall under the influence of one interest group. And we need partnerships that make a tangible impact on the policy-making process, commanding the confidence of some of the world's most senior political and business leaders. So, for example, the World Water Forum could actually take this role on for quite a few years to come. Now, let me just finish by affirming and reaffirming that at Shell we look forward to continuing to work with the Forum and its partners in public and private sectors, not just to deepen our understanding, which we are doing well at the moment, of these challenges, but actually also through actions make demonstrable progress in addressing them. Thank you very much and have a good conference.